Ginny.
Hi, Nancy.
Welcome to episode 49 of the Front Porch Book Club.
The Front Porch Book Club is a podcast that meets twice a month.
We like to dig deep into the relationship between characters and the worlds they live in.
Grab your book and iced tea and join us on the front porch.
Okay, Lenny, I love this month's book, A Man Called Ove by Frederik Backman.
I just impressed that you know it's Ove.
Ove.
Ove. When you read a book in your head, I think maybe I just said Otto because that's the Tom Hanks movie. But anyway.
That works too.
We'll call it Ove for today. This book has a lot of heart, Nance.
Yeah.
It focuses on Ove, a recent widower who has just been forcibly retired from his job, and he's planning on killing himself. The premise on its face seems very sad, and there are some sad parts in it, but it really is a story of redemption and hope.
It really is. I recommended the book for us this year upon the recommendation of our cousin, Denise.
Oh.
Denise had read this book last year, and when she and Aunt Audrey were here to see my play, she said, Nancy, I have the perfect book for your book club. You guys need to read this book. You will love it.
Oh, and this was before Tom Hanks put his stamp on it, huh?
That's exactly right. Yeah,
Oh.
She was early into seeing how great this book was. So I'm not surprised that Denise loved the book because Denise is all about hope and redemption herself.
True.
It is a beautiful book. It does seem at first very sad, but then as you move through the story, it really is a beautiful book about human connection. And in fact, I ended up crying at the end.
Oh, Nance.
Yeah. And I hate the feeling of your throat getting all scratchy.
You can't breathe.
You can't breathe.
Your nose starts to run.
Yeah. You got tears running down your face. You're like, I'm just reading a book. These aren't even real people. And here I am crying and, gasping.
No.
And yeah. Did you cry?
No.
Really? See, I thought you would have been weeping.
No.
Okay.
Tell me what got your heart going.
Well, it was at the end, spoiler alert, when Ove eventually does die.
Yeah. Not by his own hand.
Right. And the whole community who has come to love him turns out for him. And the foundation is created to also honor his beloved wife.
Yeah, that's very lovely.
Yeah. So that got me.
Oh, that the whole community came out?
Mm-hmm.
That he was loved? Even though he's a little bit spiteful and
a little grumpy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would call him a rigid mindset. I don't know if that's something that you think.
Definitely.
Very rigid.
Very rigid. Yeah. There's one way to do it, and it's his way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it has been his way for decades. He hasn't changed.
No. And there's really no conversation needed about it.
No.
Anyone who doesn't do it his way is idiot, incompetent, or any of a variety of other names he calls people throughout the books.
Yes. Well, he's an interesting character, let's say.
He is.
He is this self-appointed keeper of the laws of a residents association. Now, this is over in Sweden.
Yeah.
We have those kind of communities here too, I guess.
Anyone who has been a member of a homeowners association knows that there are some people who you give a little power and they become the law. That's Ove.
Yeah, he decides that he is the law and he goes out and inspects and tells people what they've done wrong.
Exactly.
And it's not just that he tells people what the rules are. He yells at them. He insults them. He calls them names.
He curses at them.
Oh, yes. He's something. But he doesn't have any friends. This is the beginning of the book.
Yeah.
He doesn't have friends.
Nope.
He is planning on killing himself. I can see why he doesn't want to live, really. He's angry, bitter.
Yeah.
He's living for nothing. Throughout the book, he starts becoming entangled in the people around him and a cat.
Yes.
But they start meddling in his life and get in the way of him taking his own life. So he ends up, he's going to do it. And then he can't because of the cat, because of the neighbor, because of the somebody knocking at the door. There's always something that happens. This isn't even funny. He wants to throw himself in front of a train and some guy falls down the train track. So he's got to go rescue him.
Right.
Something always gets in the way. As we learn about him, he reflects back on his marriage and an accident that happens and the death of his beloved wife, who he visits her grave throughout the book. So we get to understand their marriage, and then we become more sympathetic to this grumpy old man.
I love this story because I think Backman's argument here to us, the reader, is there are reasons that people are grumpy old men. And so he starts slowly peeling the onion and showing us all of the things that happened to Uwe throughout his life and how he becomes who all of his neighbors just see as a very irritating, mean old man. He has some very obvious negative ways of coping, but we also learn that he has some really positive qualities as well. He has a really deep desire to set the world right. And it's his version of right, of course, but he does have this very deep-seated idea of justice and fairness. Practically, he's very good with engines and home repairs.
Yes.
And he believes that there are just like certain ways of being in the world. And again, his idea, and anyone who doesn't live in the world like he does, he has no time for. He has really high standards for himself. And when he sees an injustice, he wants to fix that. And he learned that from his father.
Yeah, he did learn some nice values from his father growing up.
The one scene I really liked is where Uwe is a young boy. He finds a wallet full of a lot of money on a train where his father works. And so by now, Uwe's mother has already died. So he spends a lot of time with his father at the railroad. And his father's coworker, Tom, has already absconded with the briefcase that he found. But Uwe has seen the wallet and picked it up before Tom gets to it. His father steps in and keeps Tom from taking the wallet from Uwe. And his father lets Uwe decide whether or not he wants to turn in the wallet or not. So Uwe decides he will take it to the lost property office. And when they get there, the lady at the desk questions Uwe's father whether there had been any other items or whether it was just a wallet. And Uwe's father says nothing. Okay, so now I'm going to read from the actual book. Not many people have ever handed in this much money, she said, smiling at Uwe. Many people don't have any decency either, said his father in a clipped voice, and took Uwe's hand. They turned around and went back to work. A few hundred yards down the track, Uwe cleared his throat, summoned some courage, and asked why his father had not mentioned the briefcase that Tom had found. We're not the sort of people who tell tales about what others do, he answered. Uwe nodded. They walked in silence. I thought about keeping the money, Uwe whispered at long last, and took his father's hand in a firmer grip, as if he was afraid of letting go. I know, said his father, and squeezed his hand a little harder. But I knew you would hand it in, and I knew a person like Tom wouldn't, said Uwe. His father nodded, and not another word was said about it. I just love how Uwe's father has the confidence in his son to let him make the decision about whether to turn the money in or not, what that means about him as a person, and having those principles. And throughout the book, Uwe often thinks about what his father has said or done, and that really guides him. I thought that was really a great relationship, and that Backman gives us these scenes that give us a lot of insight into Uwe, and that deep down he really is a person that values honesty. I mean, he has many wonderful qualities. I loved how some of his father's sayings keep returning again and again throughout the book. I was wondering, do you have any sayings or examples that have guided you throughout life, especially making hard decisions?
That's a good question, Nancy. I do. I like that his father is sort of a soundtrack for him and comes up with these little phrases to live by that really do guide him throughout his whole life. Probably the one that helps me the most is be above reproach or be beyond reproach. That one always sticks with me as don't do anything shady. Don't do anything just to get by, but have the highest principle, have the highest standard, and live by that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you, Nance, have any of those?
So I have a question for you first. Where did you first hear that? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I have no idea where I heard that, but that has been with me for decades.
When do you first remember that being a principle that became important to you?
Probably at work. I mean, I think in my private life, I don't know. I'm paying my bills. I'm doing the grocery store. Doesn't seem a lot of gray area in what happens around me. But in work, if you're asked to do something, and certainly not where I work now, is that you have the highest morals and the standards possible. So definitely at work, I have thought of that in the past.
That's really cool. I wish I had some little sayings that guided me along my way that are little touchstones for me, but I don't think I do. I just read a book called The Maid by Nita Prose. It's like a little mystery. It's adorable. I highly recommend it. And in that book, the main character is always remembering her grandmother's little sayings. And it was funny, as I was reading that book, I thought that is so fun to think that people do remember these sayings that their parents had or grandparents or people who were important to them. I don't think that I have any at all, actually.
Oh. Well, I think that's okay. I think for Uwe, he had his father for such a short period.
Yeah.
And I think that helps to anchor him in that he did respect his father.
Yeah.
And he didn't have him for long. So as he was coming into adulthood, he had to remember back. I don't have anybody here to tell me what I should do. I don't have a sounding board. I'm on my own. So I have to figure out, my dad was here. What would he say?
Yeah.
And I have to go back, and that cemented some of these ideas as principles for living when he had to make an awful lot of decisions before he was really grown up.
Yeah, definitely. Also, kind of a model for how he lives his life, because when Uwe's mom dies, I think his father is pretty depressed. He's already a fairly quiet man, but he becomes a man who is just extremely quiet. He doesn't talk a lot, and that's who Uwe becomes. He's just a man of very few words. He goes about his life without much commentary. He mostly doesn't have conversations with very many people. And I think that, yeah, he's just modeling himself off what he saw his father doing and being for good and for bad.
Right. This is how he coped. And the depression part of this book seems to model that as well. He's a character that does have growth in this book.
Yeah.
So although we start out with him depressed and thinking about his past, what happens is he becomes more present focused. And I think of grieving and looking back and what he had and grieving that and losing that. What happens is that he moves into the present and the busyness of life and all of these crazy neighbors.
Yeah.
A very strange cat, I think, that kind of come into his life and pull him out of that depression and pull him out of the past into the everyday struggles.
Yeah.
Of people parking where they're not allowed to park and on the street and neighbors that need to use his car and little girls and all sorts of stuff that happen in his life. And that helps to pull him out of the reflective of what his life was and the depression to, first of all, I'm needed.
Yes.
I am needed by all these people because they can't do anything on themselves.
I mean, they're incompetence, clearly.
They just can't do anything. So I've got to go get a ladder. I've got to help this person.
I've got to help this young man buy a car that isn't a Hyundai because everyone knows you should not buy a Hyundai.
The neighbor right behind, I guess it's right beside him, gets the brunt of most of this. But I do have a question for you.
Okay.
The neighbor lady, Pervina?
Who knows? Maybe.
Anyway, so this neighbor lady.
She starts it all. Oh, my goodness.
I think she knew that Uva was in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't let on. But I kind of think she knew this grumpy old man needed people around him. And I think she knew to some extent he was going to take his life.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that that's true? That's how I took it when I read the book. And that's why she needed him in lots of ways because her husband couldn't do things around the house. Mm-hmm. But that was my thought on it. And I didn't see the movie.
That is funny you say that because I thought the same thing, that she pretty early on decides, wait a second, here is this old curmudgeon who has been planted in my path and he just needs to be drug out of whatever is going on with him. Like she really didn't know at first, but something's going on with him and someone needs to drag him out into the world. And yeah, it was the perfect marriage of he needed someone dragging him out into the world and she needed some help. And so she looked around and she said, well, then you're my man. Yeah, I'm going to ask you to do all kinds of things. I'm going to come banging at your door on all hours of the day and night. And there was one scene when he had gotten his father-in-law's rifle down from the attic and he was going to take his life. She comes banging on his door and he puts it behind the radiator. And I almost got the feeling when she came in, she knew what he was about to do and maybe even caught a glimpse of the rifle. But nothing is ever really said.
No, it's
but
not.
She's almost always there when he is going to complete the act.
She stumbles on him in the garage too.
Yeah.
And I can kind of see her looking around. What are you doing in here?
Yeah.
What's going on? I mean, there's some tubes out.
Yes.
He is makeshifting something.
Yeah.
But it's not all together. It's partly together. And I think she kind of puts this together. And I wonder if she isn't the behind the scenes mastermind of getting other neighbors involved in some stuff with him. Mm-hmm. Behind the scenes, of course. Mm-hmm. You don't really know because the book is really his perspective on things, right, not what's going on behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm. But she definitely starts bringing her daughters along.
They have to take him food. He's not eating, right?
The 3-year-old and the 7-year-old. So she starts sweeping them into his life.
Can you watch this one for a little bit?
Yeah.
I got something. What? Doesn't the little one call him granddad?
Yeah. Near the end, she calls him granddad.
Now that's sweet. Yeah.
It really is.
So she definitely is fanning the flames of this to the point where you think she probably doesn't need him that much. But it's like, oh, well, he's going to help me to learn how to drive.
Right.
He's my ride to the hospital. Now, she could call anybody probably and do this and that. But I think she is a purposeful person to say, I'm getting this guy out and about and getting him connected to the here and now. Mm-hmm. I'm glad that you thought the same thing because I kind of thought that of her too.
I mean, in a way, she's almost like an angel in this story. She swoops down and starts connecting him and helping him heal some really deep wounds.
Yeah.
But she is sassy too.
Well, that's what he needs.
That's exactly right.
He doesn't need anybody in his life that is going to listen to his derogatory
No.
comments or take anything he says too seriously about her or her husband.
Or her girls.
Yeah, she can take it.
And he wants to lay down newspapers whenever they get in the car. No, newspapers get pushed to the side. Does not want the little girl to color in his car. Well, what would you rather have her do? Pick apart your upholstery?
Yeah.
No, she doesn't take any of his nonsense.
Yeah, which is exactly who he needs. And he does end up respecting her, I think, because of it, even though he's very grumpy about it.
Mhm.
That's exactly who he needs in his life. So he's not going to put up with his. And I don't think his wife did either. It sounds like she lived her life the way she wanted to do.
Well, she sure did. And she just laughed at him mostly, is the sense that I got.
Yeah.
Oh, you. And just always saw that he was lovable and wonderful. She saw what she wanted to see in him and wouldn't ever take anything else from him seriously.
Yeah.
Just loved him.
Yep. That's just exactly what he needed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Nancy, we talked about some of these neighbor people and the people in the town.
Yeah.
Now, I have to tell you, when I first started reading this book, I didn't realize, I think they have him down as younger than me.
Oh, he's 59.
Yeah. Okay. I'm 60 and I'm thinking the man is older than I am the way he's carrying on and acting.
Oh, he acts like, I don't know, a 75, 80-year-old,
80,
right?
85, because he is totally lost in the IT store. Now, I understand that. I get that. I feel your pain, but you are 59.
Yeah.
And he is acting way older than that. But
yeah,
anyway,
definitely.
there are all these characters around him. We've got neighbors. We've got the town folk. We've got business owners. Nance, thinking of the side characters, who is your favorite?
I'm going to have to say the cat.
Okay, tell me why the cat. I know you're a cat person, and your cat has some personality, let's just say.
That's very generous way of stating what's going on with my cat. You know, my cat is kind of like Uva in that she just is very grumpy and cantankerous.
Yeah.
And a little feral. I think Uva is also a little feral since he mostly raised himself. I love the cat. The cat just not so different from Parvena, just decides that the cat's going to adopt Uva.
Yeah, I'm moving in.
Yeah, Uva has no say in the matter, really. The cat just decides, you're now my person.
Yep.
What I love about this cat is this cat has full agency and interacts in the world in very funny ways, the way that Frederik Backman writes the cat. Sometimes the cat agrees with Uva. The cat is written in as, oh, well, the cat looked like it agreed with Uva. Other times the cat is disagreeing with Uva and taking the side of neighbors. But whenever the cat is in the scene, the cat is a very active presence. And the cat is like that TV commercial, follows Uva wherever Uva goes. My cat would no more follow me around a neighborhood doing morning inspections than...
The cat acts like a dog. You don't take a cat on a walk. This cat is like a little person.
Yeah, the little cat just follows Uva around and is in very bad shape, just like Uva. Doesn't have much fur, doesn't have an ear.
Scarred by life.
Yeah, very scarred. So, okay, here is an excerpt of the cat that I think is very funny.
Okay.
Uva and the cat are sitting in his car. Once again, they're at the hospital on yet another run to the hospital for Parvena. So Uva and Kat sit in silence in the sob outside the hospital. Okay. And what is so great about that line that I just love, of course the cat is sitting in silence, but the author writes this like Uva and a person are sitting in silence. Yep. No, but it's Uva and the cat in silence in the sob outside the hospital. Stop looking at me as if this is my fault, says Uva to the cat. The cat looks back at him as if it isn't angry, but disappointed.
Now, the cat has a lot of personality.
Yeah.
And personality, I mean person.
Oh, yeah.
He's got his own characteristics going on here.
Yeah. The cat is fully present in Uva's life and making all kind of judgments. Again, just like Uva makes all kind of judgments about the people around him. There's the cat making judgments about everyone around him. Cat never has a name, just the cat. Okay, who is your favorite character?
I liked a lot of the characters, but what I liked about the characters is that, like the cat, a lot of them did not have names.
Oh, he named them.
Oh, yeah, they had names, all right. But but it goes to show the lack of connection that he had with them.
Yes.
He called them derogatory names that he had for people, and it just shows how disconnected he was from them and how negative he was towards them, except for the best friend that he had, Runa.
Yeah.
He did have a name, but he's an awful lot like Uva. It's like these two are two peas in a pod.
Definitely.
They become fast friends pretty quickly. I kind of get the feeling like they don't have any other friends but themselves, probably.
Well, and the only reason they become friends is because their wives become friends, and then their wives want to have conversations with just the two of them. So they're stuck out in their garages.
They have to grunt at each other once in a while and
Yeah.
talk about their cars and
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Yeah. So he does spend time with him, but I liked all of the sidekick characters. But when the little girl calls him grandpa, I think that kind of breaks something like, you are not the grumpy old man anymore.
Yeah.
You're a person. I liked a lot of their backstories, like Jimmy's backstory. And through that experience, we do learn how Uva is as a younger man. And the character traits that are instilled in him and the values that are instilled in him as a pretty good person.
Yes.
He has got some really good values. He's got a good head on his shoulder. In a lot of ways, he is a good husband.
Yeah.
He takes care of everything and he's set in his ways, but he has been a really good person his whole life.
In fact, at one point, Uva's wife, Sanja, calls Uva her Superman because they're on vacation in Spain and she's pregnant at the time. So she's taking a lot of afternoon naps. And Uva, of course, does not take afternoon naps. So he just starts wandering around the neighborhood, comes upon a broken down car, so helps fix the car and get the woman to the hospital who is in the car. Then the next day, he sees a man who's trying to build a fence, who's doing it all wrong. I mean, the man is incompetent. And so Uva decides it's just easier to show him how to build the fence and then actually just build the fence than it is to instruct him on how to do it. Then the next day, he helps a priest rebuild a church. And then the next day, he pulls a horse out of a muddy ditch.
Yeah.
And he has no concept of the positive ramifications. And his wife really doesn't understand, why is the waiter giving us all these free meals? Well, that was like the waiter's relative who almost died in the broken down car. Why is this farmer calling you Senor Saab? Who are all these people suddenly all around us who are so excited to see you? And she does find out, and she's just amazed. I mean, he just goes along his life very quietly, but he is really doing wonderful things for people.
Yeah, he's helpful and he's useful. And you think that this is some kind of good humanitarian effort. I don't know that it's a humanitarian effort.
No.
It's just that he can't stand the pain of somebody doing things wrong.
Right.
So it's easier for him just to do it. He's not doing it out of sort of the goodness of his heart so much. It's that he is needed. So there is something he is getting out of this. It's like, I gotta help here because this person does need him and he sees that. But there's a negativity that comes across, not like, oh, I just love to help people.
Oh, no.
Look at all the good I did. No. It's not that.
But for him, it seems like working hard, doing things the right way gives him a lot of purpose in life.
Mhm.
And again, I think his father modeled that. There's a right way to live in this life, and you don't need any fanfare. You don't need anyone to even notice it. But to be a man, this is how you behave, that you just quietly go through life and you take care of things and you learn how to do things the right way.
You see that when his wife passes, then all of a sudden he is not as useful
And then he gets retired from his job
and he has no value.
because no one is relying on him to do
Mm-mm.
anything.
No.
There's no purpose left in
Right.
life.
There's no purpose left. All these neighbors then provide him the purpose. I will say this about the man is that not only is he tidy, organized, and everything in its place
Yep.
and a purpose and a function, when he decides he's going to take his own life, he is very careful about how he's going to be found
Yeah.
and that he doesn't leave a mess for
Mhm.
other people. He
Mhm.
has his clothes ready. He has things written out. He
Mhm.
doesn't want a mess for someone.
Mhm.
He is still in that zone of being useful and not a problem himself.
Definitely.
He doesn't want to be a problem. He wants to be competent. The neighbors may all be incompetent, but he has in his mind himself together. I'm responsible. I take care of myself. I don't need anybody.
Right.
Well, obviously, through the story, we find out he absolutely does need people
Yeah. And people need him.
and he finds his usefulness.
So to me, the big shift in the story comes when he does start doing things out of love rather than just principle. And for me, that shift is when he buys the iPad for Parvana's daughter because she really, really wants one, and she draws, and she feels like if she had an iPad, she could do even more drawings.
Yeah, that's lovely because that demands a lot from him. Not only is it very expensive, it means a trip to the IT store. I'm telling you from personal experience, it never goes very well for me either. So I feel his pain in going to the IT people and talking to the people there about what it is that I want and getting that glassed over look.
And he kind of has something against computers in general.
Oh, yeah.
People spend too much time sitting in front of computers. That is a job that requires sitting in front of a computer really even a job. He's just not sure. He thinks anyone whose job is an IT consultant is probably pretty sketchy. He doesn't know how to pronounce the internet or purposely doesn't pronounce it the right way. He is really against the computerized world. And yet, because Parvana's daughter really wants an iPad, he overcomes all of those barriers and gets her one.
There's an innocence in these little kids. And I don't know that we said that, but he loses a child
Yeah.
and he never does get to be the dad.
Mm-hmm.
Because he isn't the dad, he's not the grandpa. So when that little girl calls him granddad, that really cracks something in his hard exterior. It hits him in a soft spot. It kind of changes his life.
Yeah, I think so. So what did you think about Ove brokering the peace between the estranged father and his son, Mersad?
Yeah, that was surprising to me. It seemed to be out of character for Ove to, first of all, invite somebody in. Okay, the cat was the first one in the house.
That's the crack in the dam right there, the cat.
And now you've got this person living there who's a young man.
Yeah.
Now, how is he going to kill himself? He's got the cat and a young person living in his house. His wife would have just been amazed at this, I think.
Yeah.
It's for reconciliation, not to get this man out of his house. But there is something that's going on there with him that values, I think, his own father and his father's influence and care for him. And when he sees this relationship and that his father isn't caring for him, I think the way he thinks a father should, it really strikes a chord in him enough to have a conversation. And again, it's a different kind of conversation. He's not calling him names or anything.
Yeah.
He's not being disrespectful. He's not how he typically is. This seems to be a different approach, right?
Mhm.
And it's an issue of homosexuality.
Mhm.
And for somebody who seems like they're 85 years old and might be not quite understanding this dynamic of homosexuality.
Oh, he definitely does not. I mean, he kind of calls him some offensive.
Yeah, inappropriate names. Well, the names that he would have used as a young man. You see that rigid mindset, but it's, I think, the relationship that is bothering him, probably reflective of his relationship with his son. What did you think of that? That just was an interesting part of the book.
That makes me think of the break between Runa and Uva also, which at first I didn't really get until I started thinking about it. And I think that you're exactly right, that Uva was so heartbroken about never being the dad he thought he was going to be. So here's another quote from the book that I think drives this home. And this is about Uva and Runa and their disagreements. So maybe Uva never forgave Runa for having a son he could not even get along with. I almost think that that's like the key sentence to the book. Maybe Runa never forgave Uva for not being able to forgive him for it. Maybe neither of them forgave themselves for not being able to give the women they loved more than anything what they wanted more than anything. Runa and Anita's lad grew up and cleared out of home as soon as he got the chance. And Runa went and bought a sporty BMW. One of those now it was only him and Anita, as he told Sanja when they met in the parking area. And one can't drive a Volvo all one's life, he said, with an attempt at a half-hearted smile. She could hear that he was trying to swallow his tears. And that was the moment when Uva realized that part of Runa had given up forever. And for that, maybe neither Uva nor Runa forgave him. You know, apparently Uva thought, how can anyone be a friend with someone who buys a BMW? Clearly, there's nothing rational about this. But I think for Uva, he just feels like Runa got a son and he's not even getting along with him. Then Runa and Anita can't have any more children, so they get this BMW. And somehow for Uva, he has almost in a way never given up maybe that his wife will walk again, maybe that they'll have a child. Like he's still maybe hoping and thinking, even well beyond hope and thinking, that there's still the possibility for a life there.
Yeah, the part that struck me was that Runa's son was a good for nothing.
Yeah.
In Uva's mind, right? So where I would have loved to have had my dad in my life as a young man, here's this young man who takes off for America and isn't concerned in his mind about his parents. So you see that bothers him, that in his mind, this relationship from father to son is fractured in a way that he would have loved and needed his father in his life too.
And would have loved to have a son that he could have been a father to.
Yeah, and he would have raised him by the same old principles.
This is an interesting book about fathers and sons, actually, when you think deeply about it. And then about really strong, great women who are able to see beyond gruff exteriors. Parvana, Sanja, Anita, there are a lot of strong women.
It's been interesting talking to you about this, especially I think the father-son aspect of which we spent some time here talking about. But we haven't talked a lot about the depression and the grieving of Uva and his attempts to end his life. We're going to talk about mourning and grief more in our next episode.
Yeah, there's an amazing organization in Lincoln called Morning Hope, and they companion with children, adults, and families before and after a death. They provide grief support groups, counseling, community education, resources, and referrals. We will be talking to some folks from Morning Hope about this book, which will be fabulous.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Grief, hope, and loss is something that we all face in life. And obviously, Ove is in that space. There's always hope and life afterwards. And so that whole transformation of what we want to happen in people and what has happened in Ove will be an interesting journey the next time we meet together.
Yeah, I think so too. Thanks for listening, everyone. Our website is frontporchbookclub.com.
Our episodes come out twice a month on the first and third Wednesday of each month.
See you next time, Linny.
Okay, take care, Nance.